since Aaron Rodgers is out for the season, the Packers are going to look at Brett Hundley to be their starting quarterback for the rest of the season. Now, when it comes to Brett Hundley, obviously he didn't have that great of a performance last Sunday. He went up against the Minnesota Vikings defense and threw 3 interceptions and had a rating of under 40. Ouch, that's really bad. However, he did throw for a touchdown pass in that game. And when it comes to the Packers definitely do have a good representation when it comes to drafting and whatnot. And when it comes to quarterbacks, they seem as if they kind of know what they're doing since they've gone Brett Favre and they went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that's a really good transition right there. And we have seen some flashes by Matt Flynn doing quite well with the Packers. And right now, you got Brett Hundley coming in the picture. Now, when it comes to Hundley and all of that, this guy is definitely a guy that Total Pro Sports likes about him. If you don't know what Pro Sports is, it's a YouTube channel. They do a lot of top tens here and then. And I sometimes watch their videos here and there. They have some interesting ones that I enjoy watching. And they actually put Brett Hundley in the top 10 backup quarterbacks that could be starting NFL quarterbacks. And I thought that was a quite interesting take right there. And they put him in the top 10. I'm like, Brett Hundley, before I even saw that video, I'm like, who the hell is Brett Hundley? Now, Hundley's a little bit of a bigger body than Aaron Rodgers. He's 6'3". Aaron Rodgers ain't the biggest guy in the world. And when it comes to Hundley and all that, he still has a good core around him. He still has a good old line. And he's facing against the Saints. Now, when it comes to the Saints, this Saints team isn't like the Saints team of last year. And not necessarily mean that Saints are going to be a playoff team. There's no guarantee for that. But the Saints do have a better defense. It's not as bad as it was last year, obviously. And when it looks at them, the Saints look like they're a better road team than they are a better home team, which seems kind of weird. And I know Lambeau is a hard place to win, but last year the Colts won in Lambeau, and that team's not even a playoff team. So when you put this down and all of that, it's going to be hard this Sunday. But when it comes to my expectations for Brett Hundley, I expect them to look okay. And don't be surprised when NFL Network or ESPN looks at Brett Hundley. I'm like, oh, this guy could be a future starting quarterback after he has a 2-touchdown performance, let's just say, against the New Orleans Saints. If he does have that, ESPN's going to be talking about, ooh, is Brett Hundley a future? Could he go to some other team and take over? Will he go to like the 49ers? Will he become a quarterback for the New York Jets? You name it. Like, Brett Hundley might be one of these guys. He might be the next Matt Castle. That's what he could be. He could have a good season with the Packers and then be okay with his next team that he goes with and then goes from there. Because Hundley might not be terrible. I don't think he's going to be as putrid as he was against the Vikings. And plus, the Vikings have a top 5 defense in this league. And since he's got a second week to prepare for this game, and it is against the Saints, and sure, Lambeau Field is Lambeau Field. It's a hard place to win. I will put it there, even though the Saints are a better road team than they are a better home team right now. I know that seems weird and all that, but we have to put that in consideration. And one thing for sure is when you get to Hundley and all that, I think that he sat behind Aaron Rodgers. He kind of must have learned something. It doesn't always happen with some of the best quarterbacks in the league. I felt like whoever was behind Peyton Manning in 2012 and took over wasn't very good. Like Curtis Painter was not a good quarterback, or Brock Lesnar was not very good. Or you look at Tom Brady, obviously Matt Castle came in. He looked okay. He was okay with the Chiefs. He did make it to 1 Pro Bowl, which I guess is a pretty good accomplishment. And then you look at Jimmy Garoppolo, who could be a franchise quarterback in the future and all that. And it could go back and forth. Obviously, there's some better examples. Like, for instance, Joe Montana, Steve Young. That's one of the best transitions ever when it comes to quarterbacks and whatnot. Now, when it comes to Hundley, if he does play well, he's probably not going to replace Aaron Rodgers. I'm sorry, he's not going to replace Aaron Rodgers. If they do have value on him, they will probably trade him for a high draft pick and probably would draft on the defensive side if that happens. But overall, when it comes to my expectations for Hundley, I think that he's going to take some shots down the football field. I really, really do. He's not going to be one of these quarterbacks that I don't really think that he's not going to have games where he's just not going to do much. I don't really see him being a game managing quarterback where he just kind of runs the ball because it's going to be kind of hard to rely on Ty Montgomery for all that time. Now, Ty Montgomery ain't bad, but he isn't really that good. I think when it comes to Hundley and all that, Hundley's going to take some shots down the football field. I just know it. It might be similar to what Jacoby Brissett said in Indianapolis. Now, obviously, Colin Cowherd says Jacoby Brissett is like a franchise quarterback. I'm like, okay, slow down your brakes, Colin Cowherd. I know you like to be bold and all that, but please calm down right there. Overall, though, when you look at Brissett, he doesn't look that bad. He could be a starting quarterback for the future for the next couple of years. Who knows? It might not be for the Colts. It probably might be for another team. And when it comes to Hundley, I could see the exact same thing happening. And Hundley, he's obviously in a place where they're known for good quarterback coaching. That place is known for good quarterback coaching. If you put this in perspective, at one point when you look at the quarterbacks there that have come out of Green Bay, Brett Favre, NFL Hall of Famer, Aaron Rodgers, NFL Hall of Famer. But also they've also had Matt Castle. He was the backup quarterback for the Packers before he went to Seattle. And then you had Kurt Warner was actually there for a camp, and he's a Hall of Famer. So you're actually talking about that Green Bay is usually known for being good for quarterbacks. They actually are known for that stuff and all of that. So when you put that together, I think Hundley's going to be slinging the ball. I know a lot of people are saying college offense, college offense. I don't really see that. He's been in their system for a couple years. He's going to be taking some shots on the field, and he is a little bit bigger guy. I wouldn't be surprised if he stands in the pocket and tries to sling it out there. And trust me, the Green Bay quarterbacks, they really like to throw it deep a lot of times. A lot of those quarterbacks that I mentioned usually like to throw it deep, except for really Matt Hasselbeck. But hey, Matt Hasselbeck wasn't shy to throw the ball deep either. Okay, when you look at a lot of the West Coast quarterbacks that they ran into, usually have a more aggressive passing game ever since they had Brett Favre in there and all of that. So when I put this all into perspective right here, I truly, truly think that Brett Hundley could carry the Packers to the playoffs. Now, what I mean by the playoffs is I think for the next 10 games, they can go 5-5 and make the playoffs with a 9-7 record. I think that's quite possible. And right here, there's no clear juggernaut in this league. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I put the Chiefs as the number one team in the power rankings. I think most people put the Chiefs at number one at their power rankings. They just lost two straight games. Now, they did lose to the Steelers, who obviously are usually going to be a playoff team, and then they also lost to the Raiders, who are talented, but that's two straight losses in a row. And when you put this all together, and when you put that in perspective, is the league, there's no really big juggernaut. I know we're so used to in the past couple of years that there's always these couple of teams that are just these juggernauts in the league, whether it's the Patriots, whether it's the Seahawks, maybe the Cowboys a year, maybe the Panthers for a year. When you put this all in perspective, you usually have that juggernaut. But right here, it doesn't really feel as if you have a juggernaut. So I can really see the Packers making a 9-7 record. So for the next 10 games that they play, I can honestly see them splitting that record, like having a 5-5 record, and that would be good enough for 9-7, to be honest. And there's some rumors that Aaron Rodgers could come back from this injury. I don't really know. If he does, if he is cleared to play, they're going to play him no matter what. They are definitely going to play him. But when you look at that, they can get a 5-5 record. I definitely see some tough opponents on their roster. I also see some kind of weak opponents on the roster, or on their schedule, I should so say, because they got the AFC North. And the AFC North, you're like, well, the Steelers are a good team. But then you got the Browns. Yuck. So you obviously put that in perspective. Like the Browns is like a free W right there, or it should be a free W right there. And then you got like the Detroit Lions, who could be good. And then you got the Vikings, who could be good. But they seem like they're a little bit old, kind of overpriced. I think the Vikings would probably win. And I think the Vikings right now are probably the favorites to win the division with the Aaron Rodgers injury and whatnot. And so, like, the Bears might not be that good, neither are the Browns. But then you got the Steelers, who can beat them. But obviously the Steelers can be very inconsistent at times, and the Vikings can most certainly can be the same thing, the Lions. But then you got the Ravens and all that. I think, to be honest, they could go 5-5 this record. And I know this team is such Aaron Rodgers centric. It's just such Aaron Rodgers centric. Well, I just feel that as if they might have a bad defense, which they do. The Packers definitely do not have a good defense whatsoever. But their offense is still good because they still got one of the best offensive lines in the league. And then when it comes to skill players, I mean, Nelson, Adams, and Cobb is pretty good. It's not great. I think it's kind of an overrated receiving core as a whole, the core itself, but not exactly like when it comes to individual players. I'm not really I don't really think they're overrated, except for Randall Cobb, of course. Click in the link in the description if you're interested. So when it comes to their skill sets and all that, the receivers, whether it's the receivers or tight ends, I think it's still comfortable enough to have a quarterback there and split it out. So like they can go 5-5 win the next 10 games, which would be probably would be good enough for the playoffs. Just seeing how how the league's been going, how there's no real dominant juggernaut team that you really concerned about. That's really that the entire league has a problem with and all that. So when it comes to Hundley, I think if I'm the Packers right near, aim for the playoffs. I know it might be hard. I know some people are counting the Packers out with Colin Coward, like counting the Packers that this is not a playoff team. But I honestly think they can get a 5-5 record right here down the stretch. They have some tough opponents that they probably will lose to, but they have some easy opponents that they can probably beat. When it comes to Hundley, I think Hundley is going to take shots down the field. It's going to be similar to what Jacoby Brissett is in with the Indianapolis Colts. And when you put that in perspective, the Colts, not a very talented team that much, but they're 2-4 right now with Jacoby Brissett. And then I think that with Brett Hundley, I think since it's a more talented roster, I think they can split the next 10 games to have a 5-5 record. And I think that should be good enough. And I'm not seeing this college offense by Brett Hundley. I'm going to see a real NFL offense. He's been in their system for 2 or 3 years now. So I really, really think that Hundley can carry them to a playoffs. Maybe as a wild card, but not like they're obviously not going to go 12-4, but maybe as a wild card at 9-7. And that's how I look at Brett Hundley. What do you guys think? Do you think Brett Hundley can be a decent quarterback for the rest of the season? I'll see you guys next time. Peace.